Hi, everyone. This is Takuma Sato. 皆さん、こんにちは. You're listening to the Beyond the Grid.
Hi everyone and welcome to Beyond the Grid, presented by the new Bose noise-cancelling headphones 700. I'm Tom Clarkson, and this week I'm joined by arguably the fastest Japanese driver of all time. He raced for Jordan, British American Racing and Super Aguri in Formula One, his day of days coming at the 2004 United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis, when he finished on the podium alongside the Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. I'm talking, of course, about Takuma Sato. Taku's racing story is a fascinating one because there's no history of motorsport in his family. His father didn't put him on a go-kart aged 4. His career was entirely self-made and self-motivated, and only his force of character found him a way to Europe and onto the motorsport ladder. He raced in F1 from 2002 to 2008, a period when Japan's love for the sport was going through the roof. Suzuka was sold out every year, and both Honda and Toyota owned their own F1 teams. Anyone who was present at Suzuka in 2002, as I was, when Taku scored his first World Championship points for Jordan, will understand what it meant to him, to Honda, and to the fans. They were amazing scenes. I hadn't seen Taku for some time prior to sitting down with him at the recent Japanese Grand Prix, where he was in attendance as an ambassador for Honda. He looked fit, healthy, and not a day older than I remembered. It was great to catch up with him. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Taku, great to see you again. It's been a while, and it's been more than 10 years, can you believe it, since you were in Formula One. We're talking at Suzuka, Japanese Grand Prix. What's it like being back in the F1 paddock?
Well, still lots of some nice familiar faces, still on. It's been hard to believe that it's been past 10 years. But I should know it because this is my 10th anniversary for the IndyCar series. To participate back in 2010. Of course, in the Formula One, it was great, lots of great memories. Starting 2002 with the Jordan Grand Prix, I went to the BR Honda, and then in the end the Super Aguri. Now, the end was a little bit sad story, but still we have lots of great friends. And Suzuka is it has been my special place. This is the first place that I've ever seen a motor racing. And this is the first time actually I raced in bicycle race and then went to the racing school here, graduated, and then come back as a Formula One driver. So it's a very special place. And the fans just so loyal, as you can see it. And they really, really enjoyed. In fact, they just enjoyed in 30th anniversary last year. So still lots of great things happening in Suzuka here.
Taku, what an intro. I feel there's so much I need to ask you about what you've just said. I mean, you mentioned cycling. Let's start with that, because there's no motor racing in your family, right? When you were a kid, it was 2 wheels, not 4.
It was only 2, and you have to push the bike by yourself. The things are, though, I was crazy about cars, and let's say it wasn't quite racing because I just simply didn't know, because my parents had no idea for the racing. My father, though, he loves the car, generally speaking. So we go to the drive, we go to the camping, and I just naturally really get on really well with the cars, basically. However, until really I got opportunity to come down to Suzuka back in 1987, the first Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka, and I was only 10 years old boy. And a friend of my father, who works in Honda, they had a kind of like internal ticket, all together. So a couple of families gathered together and come to the race course, which I never been to, and it was just shocking to see how huge a facility it is. And the first time I ever seen a Formula One was back in 10 years old. Of course, until then I was just riding on the bicycle all the time, but it was kind of like a normal kid. You go out and put on a bicycle. It's just to have a fun, but it's not really in competition level. But after I seen I thought bicycle was the only way for me to feel about racing. feel about speed and sensation, and that's always a bicycle. So next 10 years, which I didn't have an environment or opportunity to go to any racing, all I had was a metal frame and 2 wheels.
And did you race the bike in those from 10 to 20?
Yeah. So
and don't be modest. How good were you on a bike?
I was national champion in a bicycle. Also, so I started actually competing in high school days, and I won All Japan High School Championship back in 1994, and that was my first year for the bicycle race. So I was actually seriously competing for the bicycle race, and I, like, you name it, like Tour de France and all the stuff that, it's just a dream about it. But in my deep, deep, deep heart, I always knew I always wanted to go to the race cars.
So you didn't dream of Tour de France?
Well, it was ultimate ambition or target. You want to go to the Olympic Games and, World Championship and stuff like that. I was dreaming about it, but equally, I knew there is a enormously high competition in Europe and in States too. Japan, don't get me wrong, obviously Japan is a very high competitive the country in terms of bicycle, but in myself, I didn't really see myself picture in to go to the Olympic game. Although I wanted to go, I wasn't sure if I could.
And is biking still part of your fitness program today?
Sure, I still do love riding on the bicycle. It's a tiny little machine that you can do the maintenance by yourself, and you can feel it, and even puttering, and really nice and relaxing. And sometimes you have use as a training tool.
Now, can I take you back to that 1987 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka? Because that was the first F1 race at Suzuka.
Yes.
Didn't something like 2 million people apply for tickets? It must have been insane just how busy, and the atmosphere, and the first time you've seen Formula One cars. It must have blown a 10-year-old boy's mind.
It was beyond your imagination. Like I said, it's just the facility and scale, and the people. I think over 160,000 people were there easily, and I never seen that much of the people in one place. But the biggest things is obviously for the race car. Once you've seen the Formula One car passed in front of you, the acceleration is just enormous, outrageous. The sounds of it is also, you look at the TVs and reading the magazine, you can feel kind of unreal situation. But then when you have all the fifth sense, it's just the sound, the vibration, and just the energies, from the Formula One has. That is just nothing like it. So I just stood there, and it got me instantly.
Energy is such a good word to use to describe a Formula One car, isn't it? But so who were you supporting? Was it sort of Aguri Suzuki back then, or was it Senna? Or
that time it was Satoru Nakajima. He was only, and he was a pioneer for the Japanese Formula One driver back then. Of course, then a teammate was Ayrton Senna. So as a 10-year-old boy, it's very natural to see open up the program and everybody cheering Satoru Nakajima and the beautiful camel yellow Lotus Honda, who's the teammate of Ayrton Senna. So for me, it's very natural to see that. Actually, the Senna was the first guy I remember as a foreigner, the driver. And then after that, you, of course, Gerhard Berger's and Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, etc., etc. It's coming. But at that moment, I only knew Ayrton Senna as a teammate. And we both, naturally speaking, of course, cheering, Mr. Nakajima. And then, of course, we loved, Tag Porsche, McLaren that day, and Ferrari was actually win the race. But for me, Ayrton, who qualified 7th, and then moving up to the 2nd. So as a 10-year-old boy, know nothing technical side. I don't know about oversteer, understeer at all. But you can see he was the only guy catching the guy in front, and he actually overtook and then moving up to the podium. So to me, it was just an amazing, amazing story. And since then, I become a big fan of him, and he was still my hero.
And did you ever meet Nakajima? Back then, obviously, I know you'd met him since.
No, no, not that time. As you can imagine, I'm from a family who nothing about racing, so there's no zero connection. And even my father, that day, he was first time anything like in the mud racing. So we kept kind of a good time in coming back to Suzuka after a couple of times, but there was no actual physical connection in this business. And I have to say, I have to wait until 20 years old, which I come back to Suzuka as a school. But no, it was for me, it was an amazing experience. I just never forget. I still clearly remember those days. And the first time I met Nakajima-san since then was after 10 years later when I went to the Suzuka Racing School.
And I know that in recent years you've driven the McLaren MP44, which was, the 88 McLaren. Those turbo cars. It must have been quite an emotional moment for you to drive Senna's car.
Oh, very much, very much. Any cars in the powered by Honda, it's always got me like a big, the sensation. It's a feeling of it. But when I drove the MP44 in Goodwood, the first time actually, original Ayrton's machine. And the MP44 is every single driver's, I think, dream car. They dominated on that centuries. And no, I think it was just a beautiful car. And the turbo charge kick into, and then the power and the torque available with that little really light machine. It's amazing.
Beautiful looking car. Before we get back to our chat with Takuma, let me ask you a question. How many of us have sat gripped to our screens this F1 season as we've watched some of the greatest drivers in the world battling it out for that podium finish and wondered what's really happening on track? Well, thanks to Amazon Web Services, you can have a front row seat to all the action and more from the comfort of your own home. F1 uses machine learning and predictive modelling built on AWS to create critical race performance statistics, make race predictions, and give fans insight into the split-second decisions made by teams and drivers that can be shared over television and digital platforms all over the world. The Pit Strategy Battle shows you the predicted gap between drivers after pit stops as it analyses how successful each driver's strategy will, or perhaps won't, be. And we all know how crucial that can be. All the while, the battle forecast keeps you up to speed with every step of the developing driver battle during the race. And it's all powered by AWS's incredible machine learning and data analytics. So next time you're watching a race and wondering how they get all those awesome insights, just remember, AWS is how. Find out more at aws.com/F1 Insights. That's aws.com/F1 Insights. Now let's hear more from Takuma. How did that little boy who's winning bicycle races in Japan, national champion, how does he end up at the Suzuka Racing School? Who did you persuade to make that happen?
Well, I tell you the longer story, make it short, of course. So I was in university and sitting...
What were you reading?
So I was learning human science and in university, and of course had to decide on that. I was studying the bicycle race more seriously because in high school days there were lots of great cycling team. However, my school didn't have a bicycle team. So in order to get to the how can I say, the official race, like a Junior Olympics and or Japan High School Championship, you have to actually register as a school. And since my school didn't have it, I had to make it myself with my teacher, who actually it's nothing like your sport. So anyway, so that was a kind of a little story that I built up myself, and you have to compete. This, let's say there's like a 20 athlete in one group, and there's a huge, almost very competitive, the team. Where I have is just nobody, is myself, and primarily only school teacher was taking me around the track. So that's how we started. But then in a couple of months we become very competitive, and actually we won on the race. So then I went to the university. Now you have a proper club. You have a 10 or another cyclist, or 10 or 15, and you have a coach, you have everything, etc., etc. So it was a great environment. So I have some satisfaction. But then, like I said, I just never. It was comfortable, but it just never felt from my deep. So this is exactly what I want. I was questioning myself. When you were 19 years old, 20, you just meander, you're hovering all over the place. At the same time, I was questioning myself. No, this isn't my ultimately I want. I want to become the race car driver, because the last 10 years while I was doing a bicycle race, I was always wanting to do the racing. I just simply had zero environment. There's nothing I can do in terms of physically and financially, both. So then I was sitting in university time, and then I was leading actually kind of old sport magazine.
Did you really get the English magazine sent to Japan?
I do, but also I'm also a Japanese version too. It's actually I was leading a Japanese version at one stage, and then they talk about Suzuka Racing School, and you talk about Jim Russell race schools, and there is in history there is lots of great schools in the world, but in Japan, I think it was a kind of like a new generation, and it's only. There was a second year at that time. So it's really nobody knows. And people who spend if you have a budget, you'd rather go to the racing than the race school, because there is no such a clear indication of what you get after the school. However, this school has got a scholarship system and also has got an age restriction. So you have to be under 20 to get in. But if you won in the school for the kind of a 7 months period of the training, you basically win a full-time Japanese Formula 3 scholarship at that time. So it's a huge prize. And I thought, this is it. This is the only and the last time to get in there, because I was literally 19 years old. And I have to wait until next term, which I become 20.
And that's too late.
That's too late. So this is the last chance. That's how I basically knocked the door. However, the biggest problem was only 7 drivers available to get into the class. Over 70 drivers wanted to do that. And there is today there is lots of filters, there is actual audition system. So you drive the car, you show the potential. But back then there was no audition system. And so how would you choose that, right? So they basically they have like a basic CV, so documentation. So the people who let's say 17 years old, they already have like a max, they have already 12 years of the karting experience, the World Cup and etc. etc. I had 2 months of a karting experience and 3 years of the bicycle experience. That's it. So my CV, it literally, there is 2 lines, and I became 20 on that year, and all the other people is a teenager. So naturally, you think you have zero chance to get in, because you wouldn't choose the driver who has got only 2 months of the karting experience. So I basically, when they have a kind of a Q&A session, I basically raise the hands. So how would you choose all the drivers, only 7 drivers from out of 70? And they said CV. And I said, that's the problem. Can you do the meeting, with me? I just need 2 minutes. If you listen to my ambition, maybe if I have a chance of it. And the lucky point, fortunately, the Suzuka said, that's a fair point. So whoever wants to have this interview, you can have this interview. But however, everyone wants to. And 70 people goes to the interview. It takes 3-4 hours. But Suzuka did it. And eventually, I was chosen only driver who never had experience in any racing. All other drivers has got more than 10 years of karting experience.
So without you putting your hand up and suggesting that, I don't think we would be sitting here now, would we?
Probably not.
What a great story.
Would it be probably sitting, but it's completely different circumstances.
Yes. Taku, what an amazing story.
Yeah, and that's how I started.
You then win the scholarship,
yes.
You do your Japanese F3, and away you go. I mean, how out of your depth did you feel? Because as you say, you were racing people, particularly when you're in F3, you're racing people who have been racing for years. Probably a lot of Europeans have come over. How hard was it?
Well, it was very tough, and it was very difficult to cope. You can imagine nowadays a lot of drivers starting karting and lots of junior formulas and getting to the Formula 3. Now you say, I don't know, Formula 3 no longer, it is sadly. But back then, Formula 3 was central for the young drivers. That was back in the Italian Formula 3, German, French, and Japanese Formula 3. Just, you name it. It was a fantastic category. But before that, you can have a Formula Opel, Formula Renault, and Vauxhall Juniors. When I won a scholarship, you automatically go to the Formula 3. That was way, way too early. I was completely incompleted. I can drive the car. I can drive naturally. Probably I pick up the speed, but there is zero skill for the racing, and it was way, way too early. So I did only a few races in Japan, but it was never actually satisfied the result back then. And then at the same time, I think in Japan, the competition level is really high. As you can see, Super Formula, Super GTs, probably after you spoke to Jensen, you know about more. It's great competition here. However, the biggest problem is in Japanese driver racing in Japan, growing up inside a small country, not knowing anything for the European or American racing. Suddenly go to the one of the pinnacle racing. I don't think you can succeed. So equally, there is a communication problem. I never lived outside of Japan in my life that time, so I had zero English. Of course, in school, you can do reading, writing, maybe a little bit. But typical Japanese, you just cannot do the English. So first of all, while your superstar is Ayrton Senna, who is Brazilian, and he went to the England, and then obviously dominant in the series eventually. And I just wanted to follow the step. First of all, you have to go to learn English. So the choices are after the Australia or States or England. And if you look at all the Formula 3 drivers in great Formula 1 champion, it is come through the British Formula 3. So I basically negotiate with the Honda, and can I use my scholarship abroad? At that time, there is nobody done that. So it's always you have to invent the new stuff. But I was very fortunate to keep that scholarship system to outside of Japan the first time I ever. And then that's how I started, from Formula Vauxhall Junior, Formula Opel, eventually British Formula 3 back in 2000.
I mean, can we say that you were following your hero Ayrton Senna to Britain?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that an exaggeration?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, its circumstances very different. But to me, my dream was to become, of course, in Formula 1 driver. But Formula 1 was just a way too high target. It's just beyond your crowd. You cannot see how you get there. But Formula 3 is actually a real target, a realistic target. So I really wanted to compete British Formula 3 and win the domination fashion, because it's the only way you can reach to the F1. That's what I thought, and that's why I needed to do that.
So you come to England, and I think your first race, tell me if I'm wrong, was a Formula Vauxhall Junior race at windswept Snetterton.
I was, yes.
Probably cold.
Yeah.
We've all been there lots of times. How tough was it to come over? You said you couldn't speak English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely interesting time, but it was great. I mean, out of your family, out of your friends, and you suddenly go to the great cold winter in the UK, and there's not much testing. Straight go to the racing. In fact, that was actually summer, so that was a nice part of the England. But then it was great. I mean, how can I say? I just went to Rankin School every day, homestaying with a very nice English family as a homestaying, and living in Stratford upon Avon.
But who organised all that?
Well, first of all, the friend of my father who English, but lived in Japan 20 years too. So he's both fluent Japanese and English. And he was already back to England, and he did some of the import-export car business. So he started to help, for the coordinate. So first of all, we went to the John Village Racing, and then eventually Huey Abstrom and Diamond Racing. We found it, and that's how we started. But anyway, so he helped First of all, so accommodation. So I lived with him. And then they went to the language school starting, and then there's findings for host family eventually later. But that's my English life started. It's same as basically try to learn English, as a student. But on the weekend, you go to the racing instead of some Blackpool. Some fun.
How did you find Stratford-upon-Avon? Was it
lovely place?
It's very beautiful, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Shakespeare country.
Exactly. My friend lived in Coventry. Coventry is a great town, but then in terms of just language school, there was not much choice. There was a carriage, I think it was a great carriage, but then to me it was. It's not like this. So we driving around a couple of the small towns, and then we found the Stratford-upon-Avon, and it's kind of really private English school just by the river. A beautiful place, and I basically love that school.
Did you get terribly homesick? Because I know a lot of the Europeans, when they come and race in Japan, are on the phone quite a lot.
Yeah,
and feeling because the alien culture.
Yeah, no,
do
true.
you feel the same way when you're in England?
It's somewhat yes and no. I feel sometimes, of course, but what you're doing now is what you dreamed about over 20 years. Well, physically 10 years, because after Suzuka. But I was just so motivated, so humbling about new world, finding new world, and I was busy enough to learn everything, so there was no time to miss your country. But once for the year you can go back to Japan and have some time with family. So I was actually okay. And in an experience on a very long daytime in summer, beautiful English time, and then go to the very grey, very dark winter time, where we have almost 80 students in summer one time, but then in the winter time there is only one class and it's only 4 of us studying. So you can imagine go through everything. But as the age of 2021, to go through that kind of experience, I felt I was really lucky. Different culture, like spoons and forks, it's just actual silver. And the landlady said, "Oh, this has come from the grandfather," and stuff like that. In Japan, everything's throwing off them buy a new one. But it was it's just an incredible different culture, which is for me it was so fascinating. And at the age of 21, I was actually really start enjoying that living in the UK.
And the racing really ramped up, didn't it? I mean, we needn't go through the whole of your junior career, but that 2001 season.
Yes.
You dominate F3. Was it 12 wins?
Yeah, 12 wins plus Melbourne Masters and Macau Formula 3. Yeah, and the Spa-Francorchamps and the Silverstone for the Grand Prix race.
Oh my God, sorry. 12 wins and a whole lot more.
Yeah, I know.
Taki, was that kind of like the most fun racing season you've ever had? Is it one of your fondest memories in racing that season?
Yeah, I think
because you were so dominant.
I have to agree. Of course, in Grandma's Formula 1 days and in IndyCar, Indy 500, of course, it's nothing like it. But still, really, back in 2000 and 2001, British Formula 3 days, that really, they made me happen today. So many memories, so many, how can I say, I think it's such a needed category for the driver. And back then, you talk about, Nicolas Chiesa and the Brunis and Pizzonia and Thomas Schechters and Anthony Davidson, Ben Collins. I mean, there was the great drivers and series and like 11th nationality in one series. And I think one stage with national class and championship class, I think we had a 40 cars entry as well. It's just incredible series. And going to all the British local circuit and sometimes go to the Hockenheim, Spa-Francorchamps. It was just a beautiful, beautiful days. And I basically also another dynamic was the karting motorsport. I just cannot, forget or cannot telling to this British Formula 3 success without them. Because karting was, when I found it was only third year in the British Formula 3. It's basically Narayan Karthikeyan, and he built it around it. Trevor Karim, Buddy Hill Boyle, Anthony Hayat. So the great engineers and great bunch of such quality people in there. But anyway, when I was there, it's only 5 people started. And I tested winter testing with a Fortec, and I actually break the lap record in the winter time. So we went really fast. And there was back in there post-short racing, and there's just so many great names. Kali Motorsport was kind of no man's land. Nobody knows. So when I tested with them, however, the potential, I felt, well, this is a team I really needed. And they really needed to the next stage too. So like together, I think the vector was all coming all together. So when I come back to Japan to tell the Honda management, so this is a team I want to go to the user scholarship. First of all, Karim who? They didn't know. Of course they want to expect to go to post-short racing, etc., etc. I think it is both great teams, of course. But with Trevor, I think, this is a team I really want to succeed. And that's how we did it. And a small team now become the biggest and most successful,
Did you talk to Sajaki Stewart about racing for Paul Stewart Racing?
Actually, we talked about it, but that time I think the seat was a full, field. So it was. I think it was difficult in year 2000.
Stick around for more stories from Takuma, but first this. In the internet age, it's easy to feel like you have all the freedom in the world. The truth, however, is that we've never been monitored more by governments, ISPs, and ad companies. UK internet service providers like BT or Sky have to keep records of your online activity for 12 months. This includes all the websites you visit, apps you use, and your private conversations. But now you can protect your online privacy with ExpressVPN. ISPs can record your internet activity no matter where you are in the world. And as someone who travels a lot and often finds myself darting between working from home or in cafes and hotels using public Wi-Fi, I want to feel protected, and so should you. And I'm not just talking about those of you listening in the UK. If you're based in the United States, then ISPs can even sell your data to advertising companies. So the best way for you to stop them accessing your data is to use a VPN. ExpressVPN is the perfect solution. And the great thing about it is that it's so easy to set up and use in a matter of minutes. All you have to do is download the app on your computer or phone, and that's it. You're protected. You can crack on with your day and use the internet as normal, safe in the knowledge that your data is encrypted and your IP address is hidden. And it's all thanks to ExpressVPN. Protect your online activity today and find out how you can get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/grid. That's expressvpn.com/grid for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/grid to learn more. Right, let's get back into it. And Macau?
Yeah.
Awesome racetrack.
Awesome racetrack.
Is it still one of the best tracks you've ever raced?
Definitely.
Could we say it's the best?
Well, one of the best, for sure. But as a time goes through all the experience, I would say that was the best race in my whole career too, because you just dreamed about it all the time. The first Macau Formula 3 winner is Ayrton Senna, of course. And then since then, we've seen so many great drivers, it's going through the Macau, of course, like Mika Häkkinen, Marcus Schumacher, that was just a legend race. I still remember everything, but that race, particular race, you have to go through it. But of course, close to year 2000, a lot of drivers contracted with team and manufacturer, way earlier than Macau days. So during the season, they contracted to go to the International Formula 3000, or let's say become the test driver in the Formula 1. It's not necessarily there is a heritage that you have to win the Macau Formula 3 and then you get the test. For example, Frank Williams, you get the call from the testing. That's because you won a Macau Formula 3. But it is now not. It was a different timing. But for me, it's just to follow the Senna's footage as well as a true Formula 3 champion. You have to compete Macau, and you have to be best of the best among the champion. That's how I just beautifully imagine how you want to challenge it.
And was that the race that made Eddie Jordan wake up? Or had you already started talking to him about racing?
No, I was already contracted as a Jordan Grand Prix driver.
You went to Macau already with a race Oh wow, race seat in your
so
pocket.
it was a history as well. The first time, so that's why actually, in fact, Eddie didn't want me to go there. Because year 2000 Macau, I read the race about 5 seconds, and I crashed into the toe one. I couldn't stop it. So for me, I after a great year 2001 in the dominance, I wanted to go back to Macau and win the race. However, after I won the British Formula 3 champion, I already signed a contract with Eddie. Now Eddie said, "Takuma, no, you don't go to Macau." That's he said. But I want to go. Yeah, but look, you will lose everything, but gain nothing. Like every single driver, they wanted to beat you because you now currently Formula One driver is going to. And why would you do that? But I basically explained whole my story to how important Macau will be, and also will be my ultimate practice to go to Macau before go to the Formula One, because you have enormous pressure. Because it's only one way. You have to succeed, right? Otherwise, fail. If I cannot, compete myself for all the pressures and all the ambitions, you wouldn't be able to succeed in Formula One anyway. So I said, Eddie, no, I really want to go. Not I want to, I need to go. If you wouldn't let me, go to Macau, I wouldn't drive for you. That's Andrew Gilbert-Scott and I literally talked to Eddie Jordan that way.
If you don't let me go, forget about Formula One.
Yes. How could you do that? You're not in the position. I can only
imagine Eddie
You're not
Jordan's
in the position. No way. But, in extreme, maybe exaggerate, the things.
What a great story.
But this is how Andrew, who was my manager, and I so determined to go to. But now Eddie said, okay, you go, but you must win. Now the pressure's on like 100 times. But we made it.
And then was he the first phone call?
Yes. It was just an incredible moment. I just never forgot the sensation of winning a Macau Formula 3 and the top of the podium. That was a beautiful day.
So you're already, for want of a better expression, in bed with Jordan. Why was it Jordan? Why did you think that's where I'm going to make my Formula One debut?
Well, I think, of course, in back in days, of course, still a great manufacturer teams starting, but then still there was the Jordan. It is such an iconic team for any young drivers go through it. Obviously, the best example is Michael Schumacher, but not only for that, Eddie is a guy who is a racer and who likes the young talent and then bring the new talent to the Formula One. I think he felt that he's I don't know how to say it. That's what he has to do. And we're missing all these private team, a lot, Minardi and Sauber and stuff like that. But I was fortunate. Of course, you have to consider the time, and you have to consider who is behind. Back in then, it was a Mugen Honda team, but it's about to become the Honda team. So of course, I was very fortunate to be part of a Honda family to go to Jordan together. Of course, as Eddie's, and you can see the obviously business side that you think about it. But any business side, you have ability to win a race. Because otherwise, even Eddie Jordan, you wouldn't put the car is only for the financial part. Of course not. The only reason he chose me was because, of course, I won a British Formula 3, and I actually tested, with them, and he see exactly what I'm capable with in his car, and he was happy with that.
Where was that test?
It was a Jerez. It was after year 2000. It's just before getting Christmas. And it was a funny story because nobody knew. Nobody knew. Even I think it was Ricardo Santa was supposed to be driving. And I really didn't have a seat either. So we all, we all used, was Andrew Gilbert-Scott, he was doing a lot of straight line tests for the Jordan 2. So he has a shell, and I put in a two-platform seat on top of Andrew's seat, and then I bring it. I think Ian Phillips, myself, of course, and then Eddie Jordan, and possibly one engineer and Andrew. So I think 5 or 6 people only knew, even 2 or 3 days before I go to the Jerez. And I was basically caught them surprised. Here's a driver who driving, and I have to wear the Yano Trulli suits because perfectly fitting all together. And it was amazing, amazing experience. And according to Eddie, that was just a little Christmas present because I basically most numbers win and a pole in British Formula 3, although I didn't win the championship, and Pizzonia won it. But then he wanted to give some opportunity, a bit like Frank Remus gave to all the Formula 3 drivers back in days.
And you felt that the 2002 drive was on the horizon from that moment onwards?
I strongly believe that, yes, because of course there was a BR Honda's program wasn't starting, and 2001 I went to the basically I compete the British Formula 3 Mark Haynes, who was it? I should know it, but the British Formula 3 champion in previous years. But anyway,
was Mark?
Was it Mark? Yeah, probably.
I think it was Mark.
Yeah, but so I had to compete him and to get an audition. But I become the PR test driver in 2001 with Anthony as well. He won the I think McLaren BRDC award. So it was a good time. But then I could see of course, in the BR, there was Olivier and Jack was driving and Jensen just on board. There was no way that I can squeeze into that seat. And I could see Eddie is always interested. And for me, there was an opportunity. And deal was done. This became a
perfect size team.
Yes.
What a great way to start.
Yes.
Now, one of the memories of that 2002 season, there's two memories actually.
Yes.
One, if we take it in chronological order, Austria.
Yeah.
Every time I look at that clip of that crash, I shudder. What is it? Turn 2. Heidfeld loses it.
Yeah.
From miles back.
Miles away.
And just sideswipes you. What are your memories of that crash?
Well, I mean, I knew nothing, right? Physically, you cannot see. I knew Van Pablo Montoya was inside of me at the restart. And I was kind of, obviously give him a space. And we go to the side by side, still leading going to the hairpins. And suddenly, like a smash, like just unbelievable impact. And I thought like a meteor was hit me or something. There's no way Van Pablo hit me that way, and I couldn't see physically. You cannot see it, and I just couldn't believe if anything hit me was like unbelievable big impact.
How were you afterwards? Were you knocked out?
No, I wasn't unconscious. I aware of that, but just the pain and it's almost a blackout, instantly. But then after the spinning all the stuff that I almost like paralyzing this huge, painful body, and then actually the cockpit was completely broken, and you can see the gravel through the punch in the hole through the monocoque. And my legs was sandwiched on the scrapped monocoque, and I thought, Jesus, And then just seconds and after that, I just start feeling my feet, and okay, everything's one piece now, and just help me.
Was that the first big accident of your career?
Absolutely, there was a biggest for sure.
How much of a wake up call was it in terms of the dangers of?
Oh
what
no,
you're doing?
I mean in terms of danger, I mean still you're young and you're kind of fearless and you don't really feel the fear. But I was thanking the all the FIAs and regulations, all the safeties, because I think in probably, let's say 5 years ago, if I was exactly the same situation with the side impact and regulation, my legs probably more damaged. So I really thanks you now. Thanks. And also I have to say thank you very much for the Egbal Hamidi, who designed EJ12. It's very famously highest front nose ever had in Formula 1. The reason I say that, because the huge metal chunk of magnesium, which is the heaviest part of and hardest part of the Formula 1 car with Nick Hadfield's Sauber car, is hit backwards on one of the weakest point. But because the high nose, the gearbox went underneath of my basically knee. Yeah. So I missed it probably inches. And if it's an ordinary front nose, can you imagine how disaster will be? So everything, it was just naturally coincident. But I was escaped without any serious injury. So no, that was amazing.
It was a good little car.
Yeah.
Egbal did a good job. And then we go to Suzuka, the place where it all started, Taku age 10, And you finish in the points, for goodness sake, in your first Japanese Grand Prix. I mean, a huge moment.
Huge moment. Needless to say, my first year in Jordan days, it wasn't an easy season. You know, it was a lot of difficulty. And but the car actually starting, I think Gary Anderson did an incredible job, you know, taking over after Eggbals and become the technical directors, and they look at all the even installation stiffness, all the stuff that is just so many potential that car has. Initially, it didn't work, but in the end, at the Suzuka, it was just one of the beautiful car. And the great thing was that day, with all the budget and problems and stuff like that, after May, we didn't have any testing. We're not really allowed to have any luxury of the good testing. So imagine from the Formula 3, so most of the racetrack, I don't know. I don't know about the new front wing. I don't know about the tire spec. And you have to go to the weekend and you have to, you know, just follow the things, and then you bugger off to the next Grand Prix. You know, it was tough, and the car was probably the hardest car ever driven, according to Suzuka. So imagine it was difficult, but before Suzuka, we actually had a time to go to the Silverstone, and they did 2003's some electrical testing, but physically there's nothing development coming, so we are allowed to have anything basically. So it was great testing, and the first time actually in season I did compare to the tire back to back quite a lot. And we chose, or not chose, we knew that the spec and compound or the Bridgestone brought to the Suzuka, before we go to Suzuka, we knew and we had a chance to run it. Therefore, the car worked much, 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 much better. And my race car engineer at that time was James Key. And we were both first year in Formula 1. What a great combination. But we made a significant improvement after Silverstone test and came to Suzuka. And we were the fastest Honda car, you know. So that was beautiful. The commitment goes through the 130 hours. I think you love that story. So we were, I think, 11th quickest on the back straight. You know, of course, McLaren and the Williams and the Ferrari, they're really fast and down the back straight. So I was 11th before 130R, which all the 130R, and nobody goes to the flat. And there is another speed trap point after 130R, and I was second. So, of course, first is Michael Schumacher, and the second was a little Jordan Honda going to sideways and go over the curve. I kept the flat out, and we nailed it. So I was second on speed trap on that time, and then obviously seventh on the qualification, which was same as Ayrton Senna's the race, you know, back in 87. It was a yellow car, GHL Jordan Honda, different car. But there's so many little stories that go together. So that was a special moment. And then, of course, the race went really well, finished, you know, the fifth.
Were you a hero?
Well, I mean...
How did the Japanese fans react to you?
You can see 160,000 people waving flags, yellow flags. The Suzuka became absolutely yellow. And that was just so appreciated, all the support I've got. And my first ever home Grand Prix to become that kind of sensation, I mean, it was just amazing.
And did Mum and Dad come to that Japanese Grand Prix?
Yes, they were.
Was that their first Grand Prix?
They came to some other race too. I think it came to Silverstone and Hungary or somewhere. But
what did they make?
In fact, no. I think Austria, because it was a Mother's Day in Austria. I know it's a worst race, wasn't it?
Mum was there.
Yes, Mum was there.
Mum, let me introduce you to Formula One. Oh.
So anyway,
God,
so
poor her.
it was,
that must have been horrific for her just to see you going through that. But how did they deal with Formula One? Did they they understood suddenly what the passion was about?
Sure. Certainly they were not specialists. They are not motor racing fan. In fact, they eventually become huge fan, of course. But at that time they were just amazing for everything. And we just really I was just so lucky that have a great parents just inviting on the paddock.
So look, if that car was a good car, the best car you ever drove in Formula One has to be the 2.4?
Yeah, I mean, 2004 BR Honda, in terms of for the competition level, yes, that was a great car. You know, I mean, you talk about the V10, 3,000 cubic engine and screaming 18,000 RPM. It's beautiful, best time in the Formula One. And there was tire war, and there's downforce, and there was, I think, lots of lap record back in 2004. This car was just extremely fast. I think it was a great car. But if I choose the best ever handling car I ever driven, I had to be, say, Toro Rosso in 2008 testing.
How
Ferrari engine. Yeah.
At the end of 2.8,
yes.
You tested that car, didn't you?
I named on top of the time seat, even faster than Sebastian Vettel. No,
and Bourdais or not?
Yeah, no, of course. That was a great day. I mean, I had a great time, and of course, and under the Honda's permission, of course, because Honda pulled the things out, so I was allowed to driving Ferrari engine at the same time. But this is Edu knew is a Formula One car. Wow.
Of course.
Yeah.
But now, how serious were you? So the Super Aguri thing had come to an end halfway through 2008. Very disappointing, sort of fizzled out.
It was sad, yeah.
How serious were you about getting into bed with Toro Rosso and Red Bull?
I was very serious, of course. I was very serious. I really believed there was a great next home for me for the maybe second career in a Formula One, because half a year ago when I was racing in Barcelona in tiny great team though, but the Super Aguri team, I think we were lapped by, I don't know how many times, maybe 3 or 4 times. It was a difficult time. But then a half year later, you test it with that Toro Rosso, like a beautiful car. It's just, there is, how can I explain it? I did over 300 laps over the 3 days test. And not even once I footstep wrong. The car become talk to the driver so much, so much, and you can commit so much, and you have become the fastest time seat and not even a footstep wrong. So this is an amazing feeling. So this is a Formula One car, I thought. No, of course, but 2004 was great too.
How disappointing was it not to get that drive in 2009?
Well, that was a very, very difficult situation. Very disappointed. I was upset. But it's that's in the past. That's in the history. It's no point.
And it's so funny now that you're spending so much time racing Bourdais in the States.
I know.
Have you ever talked to him about it? But look, that 2-4, there's two things. 2004, you're Jensen's teammate.
Yes.
The team finishes second in the Constructors' Championship. First podium for no, she wasn't for the Japanese driver because of Suzuki, but your first podium at Indianapolis, of all places. Memories of that day?
Oh, it's just amazing feeling. Amazing feeling. Not only for the Indianapolis, a few races before, like Nürburgring European Grand Prix, I became the first Japanese driver to go to this front row, in qualification with side by side with Macau Schumacher. That was a dream. You always dream about it. And then there was lots of great opportunity, but just a failing. I'm failing in the podium. And then finally, Indianapolis, I qualified third. And one time I was back in 11th because there was a huge accident by Ralf Schumacher and the safety car brought in and we didn't come into the pit because we stick on two-stop strategy or something. So Ferrari in front of us, they get into the pit, but because debris so everywhere else, we have to throw in there so much, yet they came out in front of us, after pit stop. So we thought there's no way we can do the great race. But then back in drops to 11th, but then it's just overtaking, and we got the third. So that was, I remember so clearly, it was beautiful view from the podium. The Honda engineers and the team staff, everyone just so smiling and crying. Incredible feeling.
And so funny that you've gone on and won the Indy 500. Is it the same podium for the 500 and for Formula One?
Yeah, pretty much.
Schumacher, so you're on the podium there with both Ferrari drivers, Michael Schumacher, Rubens
Barrichello.
Barrichello. Did Michael say anything to you on the podium?
Well, he welcomed me. it's such a great, like you finally made it. He and I obviously shared lots of in qualification. Occasionally, I became a third quite a few times. Like Barcelona was the first time I remember, if I remember correctly. But the Michael and I had great relationship. I mean, sometimes it was a difficult time, of course, and we gone through together. But that podium, champagne celebration with the two Ferrari drivers, and one of them is Michael Schumacher, and that's an amazing memory for me.
And then, before we end, we must just talk about the Super Aguri adventure. First of all, how frustrated were you not to be retained by BAR at the end of 2005? Because Barrichello comes in.
Yeah. Jensen had a contract with Williams, so he was going to. However, I know there is some politics, there is some maneuvers that don't necessarily appreciated, but nothing you can control, and things happen. And after all the puzzle, you're basically out of the seat. Now, obviously, I was very disappointed, frustrated, but equally 2005, we had such a difficult year, and we just needed to basically reborn the stuff. The time, there was Super Aguri story was still in talk and on the table, but it was no actual function. 4 months before the Grand Prix, but then next 30 days they started kicking off, and then within 90 days we are on the next year's Grand Grid. So that was a superb job in Super Aguri, but at that time, yes, you were quite down mentally. Very, very difficult time.
Did it remind you of being at Jordan? Was it that kind of operation?
Sort of, yes and no. I mean, Jordan times is a bit different. You still have a looking for the future, and you become a actual reserve driver contract with now BAR. And I see there is a potential too that you can still build your future. So it's a bit different. But the BR time was no existing team is available at that time. So if anything, Honda can do is just, okay, build a new team. So I mean,
amazing, really.
It is actually. You think about it, it was an amazing story.
Yeah.
But,
and actually, that 6th place in Canada, 2007, was that almost as good a result as any you'd got in Formula One? Was it comparable almost to Indianapolis?
True, very true. And in fact, the Super Aguri team, the nearest rival was, I think, it's a Spiker at the Bahrain, and 2 seconds off the pace, and I think 5 seconds from the front rows. And that started, and 12 months later, we were on Q3 at Melbourne, and then a few months later, the Barcelona A-Press, and then 6 in Canada. You're overtaking now Toyota's Ralf Schumacher, Ferrari Kimi Raikkonen, and then, of course, Fernando Alonso in McLaren. How could you do that?
In the press room, everyone started cheering when you just because it was such a David and Goliath story, wasn't it?
I could see all the guys in the Super Aguri. I mean, they were almost falling off from the pit wall because every single time they're punching in everything up in the air. It was just amazing time.
Well, Taku, I feel we could have talked for hours,
isn't it?
Couldn't we? But it's frustrating. But how do you reflect on it all, the F1 part of your career?
I think I just only say thank you and big great appreciation. For me, end of the day, it was an unfinished job in a Formula One. However, I think I had a way too great fortunate situation. I'm really lucky guy to be able to do that, and part of the Honda family to have living with an amazing time in Formula One. And I just only feel really appreciation. And nowadays trying to support new generation driver, and Naoki drove today, and that was just great to see him driving so well.
Naoki Yamamoto you're referring to, who did FP1 for Toro Rosso in Suzuka. How good is he?
He's very good.
He's the real deal. Jensen Button was talking him up big time.
Yep. I mean, he might not be a teenager, the rookie driver, but let's put it this way. He never drove Formula One car. Okay, he knows Suzuka probably more than anybody else. But after only 2 sets of new tire, in fact, after 1 set and the second set is the only chance you made a lap time, within the 10th with Danny Kvyat. So this is amazing. I mean, he just done an amazing, tremendous job, and he did basically zero mistake, communicate really well, and he shows us really great future of next generation of young Japanese drivers.
Do you think Honda are keen to get him in?
Surely that's the intention, but Formula One is not very simple. So I don't know how much they can do, but I'm sure Naoki's performance today with all the Toros and Red Bull, they see internally what's happening, and I think they are really impressed with his performance.
Well, Taku, thank you very much for your time.
You're
Brilliant
welcome.
to see you again.
Okay.
And again, I feel there's definitely another podcast in you.
Okay, let's do the part two sometime. We haven't even got to the IndyCar story. So.
I know.
Anyway, okay, thanks, Tom.
Great stuff.
All right, okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Unfortunately, we had to cut our chat slightly short because Taku needed to run off to another commitment, but there's still plenty to take from what he had to say. His love of motorsport is infectious, and he seems truly grateful for the career that he had in Formula One and is continuing to have in America today. You can just imagine his discussions with Eddie Jordan about the Macau F3 race, and it was only Taku's passion for racing that forced EJ's hand. And who expected him to say the Toro Rosso from 2008 was the best F1 car he ever drove? It would be interesting to get Sebastian Vettel's thoughts on that car, wouldn't it? Well, thanks for your time, Taku. It was lovely to see you again and great to catch up. That's it for another episode, but we'll be back next week with yet another big name from the world of F1. Until then, why not subscribe to Beyond the Grid if you haven't already? We're on all of your favourite podcast apps, including Apple and Spotify. And thanks for your feedback about last week's episode with Ralf Schumacher. It was fun to talk to him, and it seems as though you guys enjoyed hearing from him as well. I don't listen to many podcasts, says Stephen Heap via Twitter. In fact, none. But when I heard your interview with Ralf Schumacher, I had to tune in. It was so refreshing and fascinating to hear his insight and honesty. Motorsport is all the richer for having someone like him within it. Indeed it is, Stephen, and we'll hopefully hear a lot more from Ralf in the coming years as his son David climbs up the motorsport ladder towards F1. And please keep your feedback coming. We love it. Remember to use the hashtag F1BeyondTheGrid, and you can tweet me at TomClarksonF1. Beyond the Grid is produced by F1 in association with Audio Boo. Until next time, keep it flat out.